We're all still hunter-gatherers at a genetic level. We're not meant to live in nuclear homes. We're not meant to live without other families. We're meant to live in community, both with each other and with nature. We're meant to live outside, not in walled areas. Now, it doesn't necessarily work for everybody on a daily basis, am I right? I'm not suggesting we all go live that way. That doesn't make sense for us in our modern world. I am suggesting we put strings out to all those different things and then strengthen those strings so that they become ropes of connection. Now, Richard Louv, many of you probably have read his book, Last Child in the Woods, or Vitamin N, talked about and named this nature deficit disorder. And it's our growing cultural disconnect from the natural world has adverse effects on our health, development, and levels of happiness. I think most of us could agree with that. Do you feel better when you're outside? Do you feel better when you're in nature? Do you feel great when you're in a big box store with the fluorescent lights hitting you? No, I almost passed out in one the other day, and I don't go in them. And I had to go in because my kid needed a Halloween costume, and I was there. Oh, it was a terrible experience. It reminded me of why I don't go in those stores. So we're in need of vitamin N, nature. It's a really easy prescription to write, and it's free. So avoiding nature deprivation is so important. And one way to do that is by having less screen time. Acknowledging, when you acknowledge something, acknowledging how many times you pick up your phone every day. Try counting that. And then try figuring out strategies to lessen that. Maybe you only check your email on your computer. Maybe you only check it twice a day. We need to have less input. I'd say one of the most important things, let me rephrase that. When I came back from Vancouver Island, the question I got was, what was the hardest part of your journey? And people expected it to be being alone or hunger or missing my kids. It was not anything to do with being out there. The hardest part of my journey was the transition back to Western society. And it was hard. And I'm still not there. I live in the woods in the middle of nowhere because I need to. I have the internet there. I do. I live in a house. Yeah. I've got a lot of land. It backs up to state land. It's very private. There's lots of wildlife. But I'm in the woods. I step out my front door, and there's no neighbors, and I am in the middle of nowhere. And that is so important for me to have nature connection on a daily basis. The transition home was so hard because I didn't realize how much input I got on a daily basis. Our bodies are getting stuck in a fight or flight response now, constantly. Fight or flight's important. When you are tracking in the Kalahari and you see a snake and you have a fight or flight response, that's what it's designed for, is to get you out of those sorts of situations. It's not designed for having that all the time. You get stuck in this sort of amygdala loop, and it's a terrible place to be. And I feel like a lot of people get stuck there. Our fight or flight is designed to get us out of harmful, deadly situations. When I came off Vancouver Island, I realized, I walked through the Vancouver airport, the amount of lights that were flashing at me, the amount of people that were coming at me, the amount of media I was being exposed to, commercials, was really, really horrifying. I didn't even know that I had to shut my brain down, or that I had shut my brain down previously to deal with it. It felt like I had ADHD on steroids. And I all of a sudden realized, as I actively shut my primal brain down to deal with living every day like we all do, that's when I realized how abnormal it was. So the transition was definitely the hardest part. And figuring out a way to live my life so I'm not stuck in fight or flight all the time was also hugely important. So there's a lot of data on how nature positively affects your health. I think we all probably know a lot of this, but there are some very great studies out there. There are more happening every day. There was a study, 1984, as early as then, a study about how nature positively affects health. Another study that being in nature is even more restorative, not just seeing pictures of nature. The first one was just a view of nature, a picture of nature, right? Being in it is, of course, even more restorative and reduces mental fatigue. A 2010 study clearly showed that time in nature not only has a positive mental effect, thus helping a person's physiological well-being, but also can lower blood pressure and cortisol levels. And when participants viewed nature scenes, the parts of the brain associated with empathy and love lit up. But when they viewed urban scenes, the parts of the brain filled with fear and anxiety were activated. That's that fight or flight. So it appears as though nature inspires feelings that connect us to each other and the environment. So how does this work for people who live in the city? It works just fine. I have a lot of clients who live in the city whom I have nature connection to. There's public parks. They even can sit on their back porch if they live in a city. I used to live in a city. I would sit on my front porch. Sure, cars would go by. I had neighbors. But I knew every bird in that area, and I put up a bird feeder. I knew all the plants. I knew the changes in seasons. I knew the individual birds that would come through. Because it wasn't that I knew that junco, which is a little brown bird. I didn't just know juncos. I knew that junco. I knew her husband. I know their kids. Like, you know, I got to watch them grow up. It's a very different interaction than just knowing juncos or birds. When you have a place called a sit spot, and I'll talk about that more, when you go to a place every day, even if it's just your front porch and you live in downtown Toronto, you can experience nature connection on a daily basis. And having that quiet time is, of course, also meditative. As we all know, that is also really important and good for our mental well-being. So here are some tools for nature connection. These are from a book called Coyote's Guide to Connecting with Nature. So if you're an educator, I know we're all mostly naturopaths here, but if you know anyone who's an educator, it's a great book. Some of the key things that I've pulled out of it are tools that you can do on an everyday basis, things that you can do, things that your patients can do to make themselves feel better. The sit spot is key. When I talked about Vancouver Island, I had that sit spot, and that mink got so used to me, it came up to me. Well, at home, I have a sit spot, too. And I go out, it's my front porch. Or sometimes I'll put the chair on my area in front of the front porch so I can put my feet on the ground and be barefoot in nature. And I know everything that comes through there. I know the individual deer that come through. I know that mom just had twins. I know that one twin just got eaten by the cougar. I know the bear that comes and climbs my apple trees. I know the raven that comes through. There's a junco there, too. It was one at my old house. There's a pair there as well. I know the robin, and I really loved watching the pair of robins build their nest. And actually, the nest was low enough I could see the young. I could see the eggs and then see the young as they got older. And then I was so saddened when the fisher came in and ate one of the eggs. Fledglings fell out of the nest, and the fisher came in, and one of the parents went to defend, and not only did the baby die, but one of the parents died as well. And I felt that pain along with that robin, because I had an individual connection to those animals. Now, it doesn't mean I have a connection with all robins, but the fact that I live solo, just me and my kids, it's very quiet where we live. We don't even have a movie theater in the closest town's 20 minutes away. We don't even have a big box store or a movie theater. There's nothing there. It's very small. My town is 200 people. The closest town is 2,000. But I have connection because I have connections with those wild animals around me. I know by sitting in the sit spot, slight changes in the seasons. I see when the maple leaves fall. I can feel that other things are coming. I know when I should grab or go start harvesting the salal berries or the Oregon grapefruit. By having something as simple as the same place I go to every day, I am super connected, even though I live solo. This can be done anywhere you live. Gratitude. Now, we started off today with a gratitude. There's something really beautiful about giving thanks for something external that shifts something internally, right? You're giving thanks for something that's external, right? I mean, I do gratitudes every morning. Every morning, I step outside on my back door, I look to the north, to the woods, and I give my gratitudes. And even if I'm having a terrible, crappy day, because we all have them, right? It's not forgetting that certain things are bad at all. We're still recognizing that there are bad things happening, but it's giving thanks for what I have in the moment. And counting my blessings really helps my mind, and it actually makes me healthier. At dinner time, I do it with my kids. My youngest is really easy. He has 1,000 things to be thankful for. Let me tell you, my 15-year-old, it's really hard to elicit a gratitude from him. But he does it. Whether or not it's something as simple for the food on the table or something stupid that he makes up, it's okay because he's getting in the practice of doing gratitude. So sometimes it's like pulling teeth. You have a client who comes in before you start the session, so you ask to do a gratitude today. You start with something you're grateful for. Puts you in a better mind frame. Puts your client in a better, your patient in a better mind frame, right? And it starts them off in a positive way. So it's really, really simple, but doing gratitudes is one of the things that has shown the most progress for mental state out of anything. And it's so simple. Some people like to do a gratitude journal. I don't like writing that stuff down. But for some people, journaling, especially journaling at your sit spot, a lot of people like to draw diagrams of their sit spot and things that come in and talk about the weather and how things have shifted every day. That really works for some people. For me, I don't feel like it's necessary, but for people that like to write things down and like to draw, it's a really great way to add to that experience. The gift of timelessness is another one. Now, that's a hard one in our society, right? We have to be here, we have to be there, we have a timetable. But when you can do it, when you can go for a walk, I know you don't have to go pick someone up at a certain time, put your phone away, don't look at it. When you can give yourself that gift, do it, even though I know it's hard sometimes. Being off social media is a big one in there as well. Paying attention to the cycles of nature, that will come if you have a sit spot. And ancestral skills. This is a big one. I teach wilderness living skills and survival skills. I love teaching it, A, because I feel like it empowers people to be able to go out in the woods, but B, I see joy and happiness light up in them when they're doing these skills. It can be anything from sitting to weaving a basket, to tanning a deer hide, to starting a fire for the first time without matches. Anything like that. It takes you out of your head space and puts you into your heart space. It also activates your primal brain. This is the kind of stuff we've been doing for tens of thousands of years, and a lot of it's been forgotten recently. But re-establishing those skills, there's a muscle, there's like a genetic muscle memory that you have, so when you're sitting there doing something simple like weaving a basket, lighting a fire, carving on a piece of wood, it all comes back. And people are happy. I teach at ancestral skills programs all across the country and in Canada. They're week-long. They're cheap. It's the cheapest family vacation you can do. Go do one. It's like $300 for the week. You get all your food. Your kids are cheap. It's amazing. My kids have grown up going to these. And all their whole lives I've been teaching at these. So they've grown up learning these skills, tracking, bird language. When you're at them, I look around. People are joining around a campfire and talking. They're happy and they have a sense of purpose. They're working on a project. They're doing something. Happy, purposeful lives. Many of you, I'm sure, have read, heard, know, right? Having a sense of purpose is huge in happiness. Being happy is huge for your mental well state. And if you have a good mental well-being, you're physically healthier.